Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about the Infiniti G35. The 3rd Gen G was released in North America for the 2003 model year on March 12, 2002, sharing the Nissan FM platform or front ship platform, which indicated the engine was shifted a bit further back into the engine bay for superior weight distribution with the Nissan 350Z and the Infiniti FX crossover. The G35 is very reliable. However, with that said, it still has issues, and some of the issues will be similar on the 350Z. Today, I'll be going over the common issues with the G35 to better educate you about your ride or help you with your future purchase. Now, I'm not saying don't buy the car. I'm just here to tell you what's up. Let's get started. The front lower control arm bushings tend to fail rather quickly due to the nature of the car. It's a sports car, so they go out. For best results, you should press out the old bushings and install a poly bushing as they last a lot longer. Window regulators do go out somewhat frequently as well. In my opinion, replacing it with the proper guidance is easy, like a YouTube video. And patience is key. New motor can cost around $100 though. The dual overhead 3.5 liter V6 motor tends to burn and eat up oil. The engines are reliable, but they can consume oil. From 03 to 04, the G35s do not typically consume oil, but the 05 to 07 G35 is the rev up engine, which is the problem engine. You can indicate which engine you have by the timing cover. If you have both intake and exhaust on your timing cover, then you have the rev up engine. This gave the engine about 15 more horsepower. You can install a catch can, which will help, but this is more of a cover up and it's not fixing the issue. You will need to replace the piston rings as they are the ones at fault. That is the only way to truly fix this issue. You may also be leaking oil, so check for leaks if your oil was low last time you checked the dipstick. The headlights on these Infiniti G35s tend to oxidize fairly quickly when they sit in the sun. There are many ways to get rid and prevent oxidation. One of which is sanding off the oxidation, then clear coating them. If you do this, you will need to wax the headlights routinely as you wax the car, but that should resolve the oxidation issue and make your headlights look new for a very long time. Within the 6-speed transmission, it is pretty typical to have a grinding noise as you shift gears. You may even need to double clutch to change gears to prevent the grinding noise. The most often reported gear that goes bad is the 3rd gear, but this can happen to other gears as well. Owners have repeatedly concluded that if the gears aren't totally toast, then a transmission fluid change and adding redline tranny flush will get rid of the grind after a few thousand miles. The odometer cluster on these cars start to act a bit funky. You may get dim LEDs, false readings, and what most people reported is a false fuel gauge reading. Basically, you will have to remove the cluster itself, tear it apart, and resolder some joints on the motherboard itself. I posted an article down below for a more detailed description on this process. The camshaft sensors typically fail often. You'll get either a P0340 or P045 engine code. There are 2 camshaft sensors on the back of the engine, one on the driver's side and the other on the passenger side of the engine. They are fairly easy and cheap to replace. It may be somewhat of a tight squeeze, but it's only held on by a 10mm bolt. Misfires are also very common with the G35, and you'll probably receive a P0300 engine code. There are 2 main reasons that can cause this, and one being the coil. They tend to fail prematurely. The second reason is that the valve cover gasket is leaking from the spark plug seals and wetting the plugs. You can easily check which cylinder is misfiring by removing each plug while the car is running. Once you find the problem cylinder, you can try to swap coils. If the coil isn't the problem, you can remove the plug and see if the threads are wet. Which now leads me to the valve cover gasket. Like I just mentioned, a leaking valve cover gasket can cause a misfire, but you will also notice wetness around the heads if it's leaking from the outside of the gasket. replacing the valve cover gasket is fairly simple. If you're looking for one of these beauties, I would stick with the 04 to 05 years to avoid the engine consumption issue, which in my opinion is the only thing which will deter me from buying a G35. However, if you have a rev-up G car and you can't afford to replace the piston rings, you can just keep topping out the oil. Keep in mind, if you live in a highly restrictive state, then you should think about fixing the piston rings, as burnt oil can clog up your catalytic converter, and you need to meet regulations if you live in Cali especially. If you made it this far, thank you. And if you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe to keep up to date with more automotive content. And this is Chris AutoMotivate. Always appreciate and respect one another. I'll see you next time.